ladies and gentlemen, Tyler Henry.
Everybody's just looking for the same things. Everybody has the same questions who comes to these events, wanting to know if there's more to life than what we see. And my job as a medium is to really bridge that gap, to show people that our loved ones never truly leave us.
Tyler Henry, the acclaimed medium, is known for bringing comfort, clarity, and connection. He has connected everyday people and celebrities with those who have passed too soon. His unique gift helps others find healing through messages from the beyond. We're excited to get a moment with him to discuss that first premonition and the journey it created.
Well, thank you again for taking the time out to talk with me. I got to learn about you. It was just a few years ago, actually, during I think the pandemic when it started, and learning and watching your show. And one of the things I found fascinating is the fact you are doing readings on people that you have never even heard of or seen because you're so young. So that was one of the first things that drew me in. But then also to find out that you were 10 years old when you had your first premonition. So when was it that you realized that it wasn't just a dream or something off, that it was actually connecting with the other side?
Absolutely. It really, as you said, started when I was 10 years old. That was April of 2006. And my grandmother passed away suddenly. And I woke up one night basically with just this overwhelming knowingness that she was going to pass. And at the time, it had felt like a memory. So it almost felt like a recollection of an event that hadn't occurred. And it was very confusing. It felt like a one-off experience. And so, I went into the room to try to explain this feeling to my mom to the best of my ability, which in hindsight was not great.
Yeah, yeah.
I felt a sense of urgency that we had to say goodbye. And as I was explaining this to her, we actually got the phone call in that moment from my dad. And it was his mother, my grandma, that I was very close with. And he watched her pass away in front of him within moments of that. So it took time to recognize that that was an ability. It took several moments of knowingnesses, really between the ages of 10 and 13 to identify that as something that was going to show up more than once.
So with all of the readings, and you've done quite a few now since discovering this gift, is there one that stands out to you more than the others?
Oh, I did a reading for a woman shortly after Hollywood Medium came out who had written to us, and she was facing terminal cancer, late stages. And she was still very young. She was in her middle age, and she had a 7-year-old little boy, and she was happily married. And she got into the point in her life where everything was working out, and then she got this diagnosis. And so I was so affected by her email. I agreed to meet with her, read her. We had a very profound experience in which a lot of her male relatives came through and joked and referred to things that only they would have known. But their main kind of emphasis was this idea that she needed to say it now while she had the chance, that she needed to say everything that she could. And so this client ended up, after this reading, recording a video to be played at her funeral. She went so far as to create a time capsule to be opened years after her passing.
Oh,
She ended up
wow.
actually fulfilling birthday cards to her little boy until he was 40 years old. And he was 7 at the time. So for
Oh,
every year, he had a
wow.
card to open up from his mom. And I think that speaks to the profound nature of how readings can affirm what we already know intuitively. We all know. We've got to give people their flowers now, right?
Hmm.
Life gets in the way. Dynamics are not that straightforward. And so my hope is that these readings affirm that and kind of act as a call to action to just do what we can.
One of the things I want to ask is, what do you think is the biggest misconception when it comes to your work?
I think that a lot of the tropes around fortune telling and even the word psychic, as loaded as that phrase is and what it kind of conjures in one's mind, has been a disservice to what I aim to do as a professional, in the sense that I try to hope, or I rather hope that in practicing and being a practitioner of this work, that I'm able to facilitate connections. Um, at the end of the day, it's really very, to me, subjective, in the sense that it kind of falls into that world of art and falling in love. It's very ineffable, kind of beyond words. But when an experience is shared between two people and something comes forward that's just so validating, that's only known between you and the person that passed, it creates a transformation, I find, in a person. And that transformation is very hard for that person to then go tell their friends and family about, or even get asked about in interviews later. They almost often you know, kind of don't want to talk about it because it affects people on a transformative level that
Mhm.
it has to be experienced in order to be understood.
So how do you deal with those that are doubtful about your abilities?
I completely understand. I think diversity is one of the beautiful things of life, and you know, I just am here to really just try to spread a message that is, at its base, I think, fundamentally agnostic in the sense that everybody can understand the value of reinforcing connections while we have them. Perhaps, you know, the value in meaningful coincidences. Some people may consider that magical thinking. I think for me, if anything, those moments of magic and intuition have saved my life several
Mhm.
times over and have enriched it. But not everybody feels that way, and I think that that's okay. You know, we need materialists. I need to get my you know, car worked on, or perhaps, you know, my surgeon. I don't want to be away with the fairies. Like, you know, we need
Exactly.
materialists. I'm okay.
In the process of preparing for a reading, I mean, it's from what I could see, it's an energy type of exchange that's happening here. How do you prepare for that? And is it ever a draining experience when you do it?
So it's equally invigorating as it is draining. And so I find that for me, really, my ability is a huge mystery. There's some little I know about it. But what I have found is that when I do readings, I tend to sweat. Even when I'm under the same exact lighting as the person that I'm reading, they're, you know, of course, generally on Hollywood Medium in the beginning, especially hyper conscious of their makeup. They didn't want it to run or anything. Here I am, just completely like drenched, and you know, they're sitting there flawless. And so I think it was a testament that something was going on internally, over and over and over again. And that experience for me allows me often to kind of blow off unnecessary steam. As if I don't do it for now, I find like 2 to 3 weeks, I usually start feeling kind of sick. But equally, if I do it too much, you know, then I get very drained and have difficulty sleeping.
So what can
No.
we expect with this upcoming show? What will audiences see when they step into that arena?
Yeah, so it's a two-part show. And the first, I just explain a little bit about who I am. And sometimes the husbands think that, you know, the husbands that get drug along by their wives, they think they're seeing Tyler Perry. And then I show up and they're like, wait a minute, that's not Tyler Perry. So I have to like do the explain of like Tyler Henry, Hollywood Medium, not Hollywood Media, like the whole thing. And then you know, I go into the three most important things that I want them to get out of it. And then those three things kind of are like the base for the experience that we all share. And really, because it's not scripted, it's not staged, anything can happen. I never have any clue where it's going to go in its entirety, at least. I sometimes will get intuitive inclinations as I'm walking on stage, but it's free game, whether you're seated in the very front or the very back. You know, anybody can receive a message. It's very interactive. I often go into the audience, and we just find that people go into this often, you know, generally as strangers, and people leave often having heard each other's stories. And there's power in honoring the truth
Hmm.
and telling our story and the vulnerability required there. And you see that when one person can do it, it opens up healing for a whole group, and that's really my goal.
And I was going to ask, I mean, what do you want audiences feeling when they leave the venue after experiencing that?
You know, I think wonder and affirmation. You know, I'm not here to convert anybody to any belief in one way or another. All I offer is really just this idea that perhaps coincidences can be facilitated, that are meaningful, that can almost act as messages, from some greater force, maybe a force even within ourselves, as reflected through our loved ones. And so intuition is a mystery, it's an enigma, it's a fascinating part of the human experience. And I hope people, you know, view it as an opportunity to consider their own ability to connect with others. Hopefully, you know, have compelling demonstrations of it. We'll see. I sometimes show up to these shows and I'm like, who's performing tonight? And then I'm like, oh, it's me. And without Phil, it always goes great. So I'm very excited.
Well, one last question. Um, and it's as I started, realizing that a lot of the people that you got to read that were celebrities, it humored me so much every time. Like, I'm not familiar with it, and I'm just like, are you serious?
Yes, Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I have to ask, is there a celebrity that you have read that you did know that you had a fan moment in the process?
Ooh. And you know what? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm drawing a complete. I mean, Sarah Paulson was great. That was nuts, and I was a fan of her American Horror Story
Yeah.
at the peak of American Horror Story earlier on, and I was one of my first readings as a medium in Hollywood, so to speak. It was over the phone, and my hand was sweating, my palm was like shaking, and the phone almost fell out. I almost had to put her on speaker. But that was a very bizarre experience because there had been times where I would watch people on TV get an impression, and then I got to meet them later on in life.
Yeah.
And that impression. So full circle.
I would think it's cool to meet Sarah Paulson too, to actually do that reading. I think that's amazing. Well, Tyler, thank you again for taking the time out to talk with me. I greatly appreciate it. And we look forward to your show coming up here soon.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it too. And then if you need anything, you know where to find me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.